Welcome back to Small Batch, small portion holiday dishes because we don't all have big families. For this recipe, you only need 1.5 cups of pasta. You can use elbows or you can use cavatappi. It's really up to you. Salt your pasta water and cook the noodles until al dente. Do not overcook the noodles. These are the cheeses that I'm using. You can really use whatever cheese you like to. The important thing is to use 2.5 cups because this is a small batch. Now it's time to make our cheese sauce. We're going to start by making a roux. This should be very simple because we're using a little amount of flour. Once the flour is dissolved, you want to gradually whisk in some room temperature half and half. Lower the heat, add in your spices and cheese, and save some on the side for topping. Stir in the noodles off the heat and pour into a small baking dish. I'm using a 9-inch dish that holds 1.2 quarts. And please go to my blog. I describe everything thoroughly with step-by-step photos and helpful tips on every recipe. It is free. Once the mac and cheese is baked, I like to let it sit for at least 5 to 10 minutes to cool. This makes about 2 servings with leftovers and 3 probably total. Depends on how much you eat. Welcome back to Small Batch, small portion holiday dishes because we all don't have big families. You'll need about 3 small sweet potatoes for this, anywhere from 1.5 to like 1.8 pounds. Grease a small baking dish with some butter. I'm using a 1.5 quart baking dish. Add the sweet potatoes to the baking dish, and I kind of like to just layer it. In a saucepan over medium heat, you want to add 6 tablespoons of salted butter. Once the butter is melted, reduce the heat to medium-low. 1/2 cup of brown sugar, a 1/4 cup of white sugar. Give this a little stir. A teaspoon of cinnamon and a 1/4 teaspoon of nutmeg. Teaspoon of vanilla extract. I'm using my homemade vanilla extract that I showed you how to make months ago. Stir it all together until it's nice and smooth. Pour the mixture over the potatoes. Cover with some foil. Bake for 45 minutes. After 45 minutes, remove the candy yams from the oven. Take some of the sauce and baste it over the candy yams. Put it back in the oven for 15 minutes. This recipe is very easy, foolproof. I stand by it. If you type in Candied Yams recipe on Google, my recipe should be the first one that comes up. Welcome back to Small Batch, small portion holiday dishes because we all don't have big families. You want to use some type of smoked meat for this. I'm using smoked turkey necks, about 1/2 pound. Add to a pot your smoked meat. It's enough water to slightly cover the meat. About a teaspoon of chicken bouillon. Since this is a small batch recipe, you do not want to use a big pot for this. This is 4 quarts, okay? If you use a big pot, it's gonna be too much water in your collard greens at the end. Too much of it, it'll turn out mushy. Once everything starts to boil, we're gonna cover the pot and then lower the heat to medium-low and let this simmer for 40 minutes. Now you wanna go ahead and remove the stem from the collard green. The way I was taught was to just fold it in half, hold it, and just rip the stem out. Very easy, very simple. Lay the leaves on top of each other like this and then start to roll them up really tightly. Start chopping the greens into about 1/2-inch slices. Wash the greens. We're gonna add some vinegar and fill it up with water. Mix it around, pour it out, and do this about 3 times. If you got them straight from the field, do it as many times as you need to so the dirt is off of it, okay? You just want to wait for it to wilt down a bit. Add in some butter and smoked paprika, vinegar, hot sauce, fresh cracked black pepper, and 2 cloves of smashed garlic. I've been posting the same recipe for years and people love it, okay? So many ways to make collard greens. I think my way is pretty simple. I don't use a lot of ingredients, but the taste in the end is so delicious. You want to cover it, lower the heat, and let this simmer for about 1.5 hours. Our greens should be pretty much done now. We just want to remove the smoked meat. Add the smoked meat in. Welcome back to Small Batch, small portion holiday dishes because we don't all have big families. Now, everybody and their mama makes cornbread dressing different, okay? But I developed this recipe so you know what measurements to use for a smaller batch, but it's very customizable. If you like to add chicken or any kind of meat to your cornbread dressing, you can definitely add it in this recipe. A day or so before you want to make the dressing, you want to make your cornbread. This way it'll be a little bit stale so it can soak up all of the liquid in the recipe. And this makes a very small amount of cornbread. You need about a 5-inch skillet or a very small loaf pan. Crumble up the cornbread so it looks like this. I just simply crumbled it with my hand. Add it to a mixing bowl. And just a little bit of stale white bread that I had as well. 2 tablespoons of butter over medium heat. Once the butter is melted, add a 1/4 cup of diced celery, 1/2 cup of diced onions. Once the onion and celery is soft, add in your garlic, 1 teaspoon of fresh sage. You could use dry sage as well. Cook this down for 30 seconds. Poultry seasoning, pepper. Give this a mix. Turkey stock. You can use turkey or chicken broth. Now I like to taste it and just make sure it's seasoned to my liking, and then you can add more seasonings if you want to. I think it's great how it is. Add a 1/4 cup of cream of chicken, but you can add heavy cream if you don't want to do cream of chicken. I'll start mixing it around and look for the consistency that I want. I want it to be kind of like a thick oatmeal, mushy but not soupy. Gonna taste it one more time. Just a little bit more pepper. Just a little more sage. 1 egg. Welcome back to Small Batch. Small portion holiday dishes because we don't all have big families. You want to use about 1.5 to 1.8 pounds of Yukon Gold potatoes. Peel all the skin off the potatoes, then cut them into quarters. Add the potatoes to a pot with just enough cold water to cover them. A tablespoon of salt to the pot. Cover and let this come to a boil over high heat. Once it's boiling, you want to remove the lid and let this simmer for 20 minutes on medium heat. About 10 minutes into boiling the potatoes, you want to start making your sauce with 3/4 cup of heavy cream, 3 tablespoons of butter, about a 1/4 teaspoon of fresh cracked black pepper, a clove of garlic minced, 1 ounce of cream cheese. Do this on medium-low heat. Drain the water from the pot. To mash the potatoes, I like to use a potato ricer. Using a potato ricer is the best way to get them extra fluffy. Taste the potatoes to see if you want to add any salt to it. Since we salted the water that the potatoes boiled in, the salt should have absorbed into the potatoes. That's good. It doesn't need any salt. Stir in half of the chives. Too good. Welcome back to Small Batch, small portion holiday dishes because we all don't have big families. It's super moist with just the right amount of sweetness. Too good. Add all of your dry ingredients to a mixing bowl and stir them together. I like to smooth out any clumps from the brown sugar by hand. To another bowl, mix together the wet ingredients. I baked sweet potato for this, but you can also use canned. Gradually mix together the wet and dry ingredients and tell me why I almost forgot the butter. Let the batter rest for about 10 minutes, then add to a 1.5 quart baking dish. Bake in a preheated oven for 30 minutes. Let cool a bit, then top with a honey butter mixture. Remove from the pan and cut into equal pieces, and as always, the full recipe is on my blog with notes. And when you dip it into that pot liquor with the collard greens, that's how you eat it. Welcome back to Small Batch, small portion holiday dishes because we all don't have big families. If you still want turkey on the table but don't need a whole bird, using just the turkey breast is perfect. Pat dry your turkey, take out the backbone, and I like to save it for my turkey stock. I love doing a dry brine of kosher salt, black pepper, and brown sugar. This draws out the moisture, adds flavor, and makes the meat juicy because nobody wants dry turkey. Let it brine for at least 24 hours and up to 48 hours. Take the turkey out an hour before roasting. In the meantime, make your jerk compound butter. Rub this all over the turkey. You want the turkey at room temperature for this so the butter can spread easily. Add some aromatics to a roasting pan and place the turkey on top, then inject the turkey with some of the melted compound butter. Roast the turkey on the bottom rack for 20 minutes per pound, baste once, and once browned, I like to loosely tint it with foil. Once it's done, let the turkey rest for at least 20 minutes before carving. This is crucial. While it's resting, I like to make a little gravy using the pan drippings, and I add a little jerk seasoning just to complement the turkey. Look at that, nice and juicy, and the full recipe is on my blog as always.